session 1, we shall be discussing the future developments and trajectory of ties between India and China and how this shall redefine the global order. For this, I would like to call upon Lieutenant General Narasimhan Sir, Director General Center for Contemporary China Studies and member National Security Advisory Board to chair the session. To begin with the insightful presentation, we have Professor B.R. Deepak, Center for Chinese and Southeast Asian Studies and Managing Director, Think Tank India Journal, who will present on China's national security policy, CCP and PLA threats and challenges. Over to you, Professor.
Bala, I may kindly hand over to General Narasimhan for doing the needful, for chairing the session, for bringing in the other speakers, etc. That's the job of the chair. So please hand over to the chair. Yes, sir. Over to Lieutenant General Narasimhan, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Commodore Watson, Mr. Heblicker, Mr. Sachin Iyer. It's a privilege to be here. And when I was offered this opportunity, I immediately grabbed it because this is one of the important events that I think one would like to be part of. And I also would like to thank Mr. Ranade for setting the stage for the reminder webinar that is going to be on today and tomorrow. As part of the first session, the topic is India-China future development and trajectory of ties. Redefining global order is the title. So basically what it implies is two things. One, are we still looking at the China and India being the part of the Asian century, or is it only China going to be part of that century? Two, how our internal situation of China, international behavior of China, the economic performance and the military reforms that China is undergoing, how are they going to evolve and impact this relationship? Thirdly, it is definitely on the cards that the global order is getting redefined, and this is not something which is new. It has been on for a few years now. And how is that going to pan out? To discuss all these three, we have a panel of eminent speakers, Professor B.R. Deepak from JNU, Professor Chengappa from Bangalore, and my own friend and course mate, General Ravi Shankar, to discuss the three different topics. The first topic is going to be what has been already announced by Bala. So without spending much, I'm not going to introduce the speakers. All of them are well known to this audience. So may I request Professor Deepak to deliver his presentation, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, General Narasimhan. Can you hear me? I hope I am audible.
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay, it's a great pleasure to be invited, for this webinar. And the topic that I've been assigned is China's national security policies, threats and challenges. It's a very huge topic, and Ranade has already laid a sort of like a big roadmap, and some of my observations that would be, overlapping what Ranade has said. But still, I think I have 20 minutes, and I will finish it within the time limit. What I will do in my presentation is I'll flag out, 4 issues, rather take a kaleidoscopic view of China's national security. So right from its inception, maybe I'll not take too much time for the first and second point, maybe third point where, a current situation is there. I'll delve a little more. Essentially, it would be, an overview of, you can say, 30 years under Mao and 33 under Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao, and 8 years under Xi Jinping's regime. So essentially, it will, take the audience through revolution, reform, and the new era period as the Chinese they define it. The first, military and political security during the Mao period, or maybe slightly little later till reforms, During this period in time, so it was obviously determined by, as Mao himself put it, war is inevitable, and class struggle was, one of the slogans in China. So Mao made it his immediate choice to lean to one side, but the differences with the Soviet Union, as we know, that grew, and the paradigm shifted, what the Chinese called Lianga Chuan-Tou Daren, to fight with two fists, so that is confrontation with both the superpowers. But during this period in time, China called for Afro-Asian fraternity and opposed imperialism, revisionism, reactionaries, in various countries, and in India was considered as one of the reactionaries, which was conniving with KMTs, or Taiwan, another reactionary force there. So China believed this kind of policy was essential for safeguarding national independence, sovereignty, security, and territorial integrity on the one hand, and safeguarding the revolutionary achievements of the party leadership and socialist system, which I think especially these two components, so they are still being emphasized even now by Xi Jinping. So we witnessed various movements such as 3 antis, 5 antis, and anti-rightist movements, and finally, the culture revolution. So these measures were successful in creating a huge army that saved the Communist Party and socialist system, for China, but also inflicted untold miseries on Chinese people, worsened the relation with USSR and India, of course. Perceptions on border, according to my understanding, I think it was just an excuse for its economic domestic mismanagement, but in reality was an attack on imperialism, revisionism, and reactionaries. And obviously, we also saw that approachment with the United States as the relationship deteriorated with the Soviet Union. So that is the first point. And the second point, it transitioned from traditional security concept to non-traditional security concept. This is the period of Tang, Jiang Zemin, and Hu Jintao from 1979 to 2012. So during these 3 decades, so China made huge adjustments in national security policy. Of course, the slogans of Mao era, so they were off, and paradigm was replaced by seek peace and development, so qiu he, he ping mou fa zhan. So these were the buzzwords, the leaders, so they spoke on every occasion. And I think it was a necessity arising out of the reforms and opening up which China had initiated. And as a result, the notions such as the good neighborliness and later on harmonious world of Hu Jintao and the major power relationships, so they were floated with success, albeit, of course, US never accepted China's notion of a major power relationship. Deng Xiaoping's reformist agenda, so it was pushed by successors like Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao. Even though China opened its door to the outside world, however, the focus of national security remained intact as it was expanded into other non-traditional security arenas, consolidating the socialist regime, preventing invasion and subversion, increasing security and counter-espionage, opposition to peaceful evolution, and other aspects of non-traditional security threats such as terrorism, transnational crimes, and global warming, human security and ecological security, etc. They were incorporated into national security policies. And in 2000, China established the Central National Security Leading Group that closely worked with Central Foreign Affairs Leadership Office. I think maybe this was the cue where Xi Jinping later created so many leading groups and became, head of these leading groups. China saw this as an important period of strategic opportunities. In 1997, we see Jiang Zemin proposing a new security concept, 新安全观. It was centered on mutual trust, mutual benefit, equality, and cooperation. In fact, these are also enshrined in the major power relationship. So it is amply clear who China had it in mind, though through dialogue and cooperation, instead of resorting to force or threat of force. These were China's, you can say, dictums that China is willing to resolve differences and disputes through dialogue, so on and so forth. China shunned the notion of Thucydides trap and coined notions such as peaceful rise of China. Interestingly, this is also the period when China expanded and penetrated deep into the ecosystem of liberal democracies, which Western world now define as China's sharp power, or maybe the combination of hard and soft power, smart power, in established integrated command system for its armed forces, for an informatized warfare, and conversely, so China created its own platforms in information technology and denied the very space which China occupied in liberal democracies inside China. They denied the entry of foreign giants inside China in various sectors, including big corporations like oil and gas, telecom, various facets of other information technology and other platforms, we are aware about. So in 2011, so China released the white paper, and it is in this white paper so that we get to know, so what their national security policy is trying to identify further. In fact, it was the white paper on China's peaceful development, and it officially announced its core interests, namely national sovereignty, national security, territorial integrity, national unity, and national political system established by the Chinese constitution, and overall social stability and economic and social sustainability. So these were the goals defined, and we will see that so these are widening in scope, or I would say that that this security boundary of national security, it has been expanded immensely by Xi Jinping. So that brings me to my third point. So maybe I'll elaborate it a little more, which is comprehensive national security concept in the new era proposed by Xi Jinping. And this we see as the socialism with Chinese characteristics, as they say, entered the new era since 18th National Congress of the Communist Party of China in November 2012. China's national security policy went for an overhaul. During the third plenary session of 18th Central Committee of the Communist Party of China, held between 9th and 12th November 2013, the China proposed to improve the public security system, improve the level of governance, and establish a new security commission. On 15th April 2014, while addressing the first meeting of National Security Commission, Xi Jinping put forward the comprehensive national security concept. So it was for the first time in 2014, so that he put forth this concept. China sees it as a period of major development, major changes, and major adjustment, and is facing a major change unseen in a century. In Chinese, they call it 大发展、大变革、大调整时期。所以中国面临百年未有之变局、大变局。So Xi Jinping, named 11 aspects of this security concept, and they are political security, territorial security, military security, economic security, cultural security, social security, scientific technological security, information security, ecological security, resource security and nuclear security. So we can see, so it has expanded, in various fields. And of course, this, I think, we can correlate with Xi Jinping, assuming the leadership of so many central leading groups, from economy to finance to security to, various other areas, including reforms. But I think I will pick up the so-called 5 major elements, of this comprehensive national security. So that is taking people's safety as the purpose. Xi Jinping has time and again harped on people-oriented approach. In fact, in almost all his speeches, so this element is highlighted, and political security as fundamental. So this is the second aspect I would be a little elaborating on, and economic security at the foundation. And that is where the Chinese Communist Party and Xi Jinping, so they find legitimacy, and military security, and then finally the culture and social security as the guarantee for the promotion of international security as the support, of all these other securities. So these five elements I will briefly deal one by one. So as regards the political security, I think it is a foundation of national security policy in China, implying that regime security, that is the leadership of the Communist Party, and system security, so that is the socialist system in China, and ideological security, their ideology, Marxist, Leninist, Maoist, ideology, including Deng Xiaoping's thought and Hu Jintao's harmonious world, Jiang Zemin's 3 rapids, and so on and so forth. So they form the part of the ideological security, and including Xi Jinping's own thought. They are the top priority, and this has been reiterated by Xi Jinping on various occasions, including the 19th Party Congress, when he emphasized on the path, that is the socialist path, the theory, is various ideological, paradigms China has floated, and the system in China. He said that it will not change for a long time to come. I think the change in constitution could be seen in this light, where he had been made president for life. The path, which is economic development, remains the main priority, guided by the theory developed by the first to his generation of the Chinese leadership, and guaranteed by such a political and economic system that is, the Chinese say, the rule-based. And internally, since the 18th National Congress of the Communist Party of China, the party and party member discipline, so which Rana De spoke at length, and has closely linked internal party discipline and political security and national security. So he has integrated so many facets in this political security, and cleansing the party, or the tiger and fly campaigns. So they are very much part of this political security. Second is economic security. It guarantees the legitimacy of the party state. It is this, in this context, Xi Jinping has been advocating this people-oriented development, the man contradiction, which he has flagged out in his report during the 19th Party Congress. The Chinese dream, which again, they explained very nicely, the goal of 2 centenaries, is strided against the tigers and flies, reinforcing the mass line as a fundamental of the party, providing the best public service, so on and so forth. So it has been integrated with it. That's why we see that under Xi Jinping, if we take just an example of the high-speed railways being constructed in China, it has already crossed 36,000 kilometers, which until Hu Jintao's time, it was just 8 8,000 to 12,000 kilometers. Now, the military security, of course, this I think it is from the very beginning that China has emphasized on this rich and powerful notion, Fuqiang, right, the concept, and it has continued till date. So building a powerful army remains a top priority, to safeguard political, economic, and territorial security, which has been elaborated by various leaders throughout the history in China. No wonder the defense spending, has increased by 40% in the last 3 decades in China, which is whopping. I think this is also one aspect which has, created ruffles in White House, that so China was perhaps spending so too much on defense. So with such a spending, so China has been able to develop anti-access area denial capabilities. It has been able to integrate command and informatizing in its various platforms. The development of stealth fighters, aircraft carriers. It has also been able to militarize the South China Sea, because of these capabilities, and build military bases outside China. As Rana Day again pointed out, the Made in China 2025, it is very much part of this planning. It also must be seen in this light. One of the most ambitious, goals of this program, which essentially China said that it is a national development strategy, but it has identified, to achieve 40% self-sufficiency by 2020 and 70% self-sufficiency by 2025 in core components and critical materials in a wide range of industries, including aerospace equipments and telecommunication equipments, and achieve international recognition for Chinese brands. So this has been seen as an opportunity, by China for its major players outside. But with the ongoing trade war and the Cold War, I think so. This has totally been rocked. The Chinese ship, it has totally been rocked, as Rana has mentioned. As regards territorial security, Taiwan, of course, it remains the top priority, and I don't think they would be able to fulfill the unification, before 2021. That is the first centenary of the Communist Party of China. But the 3-step strategy, of South China Sea, which I have often, argued in my various writings also, that is laying claims to large swaths of territories, and then incrementally changing the status quo, then militarizing these territories, and then present a fait accompli, has been replicated elsewhere. I think in South China Sea, so they have been partly successful, being able to break the first island chain, and especially in this context of Indian context, especially when we have these standoffs going on along the border areas. So I think this strategy is very much part of that, and I agree with Rana that we have to stand firm and then not to bow down before Chinese as far as these standoffs are concerned. Other territorial disputes, of course, with Japan and then issues such as ethnic separatism, mainly the Tibetan independence and Xinjiang independence. So they are of prime concern. So as far as this territorial security of China is concerned, and then the fifth fifth element of this comprehensive national security of Xi Jinping.
Professor Deepak, you need to wind up. We are running short of time.
I'm winding up maybe in 1 minute. In terms of promoting international security, so China has advocated this grandiose strategy of global governance, such as Belt and Road Initiative, Community of Shared Future for Mankind, telling the Chinese stories to the outside world, and multilateralism forms such as Shanghai Cooperation Organization, BRICS, AIB, NDV, so on and so forth, where China's smart power has been demonstrated on every possible occasion. These initiatives, I also believe that they were initiated as an antidote to the United States rebalancing to Asia, Indo-Pacific strategy, including the ongoing US-China trade war, so on and so forth. Now, I think the last point, I don't have much time, so maybe I'll emphasize only one thing. We have been asking for a new understanding, a new equilibrium from China as far as India-China relations are concerned. I think this is not going to happen in a foreseeable future, because China refused to share space. That also answers one of the questions you have posed in the beginning of my lecture. That 21st century, it doesn't see India as a partner in this, because it has refused to share space with India, share power with India, and it believes that the balance of power is hugely in favor of China. So therefore, I think we have to think about other ways. We have to devise a long-term, goal-oriented, sustainable strategy to make our domestic, economic, social, and political drivers strong. I think only this way we would be able to face up to the Chinese challenge and this maybe security challenge. I think I'll stop here. Otherwise, I'll cross my time limit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Deepak, for that particularly splendid explanation of how China's national security policy has evolved over a period of time. I will reserve my comments till the end. Mr. Ranade, would you like to answer the questions before you leave, or you're going to wait for some time so that I can go ahead with the other speakers?
Why don't you go ahead with the other speakers? Otherwise, it will break the flow. I'll answer the questions at the end of that.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I'll move over to Professor Chengappa for his presentation. Please go ahead, Mr. Chengappa.
Thank you. The crux of India-China relations is all about the border dispute, right? So now the border dispute is something that we need to go into very briefly. So I'll take a few minutes to explain the border dispute from a historical and diplomatic perspective. History, geography, ideology, military, and politics shaped the border dispute in the backdrop of the Cold War, which characterized the international security environment in the 1950s or the post-Second World War period. Now, India and China entered became nation states in a very different manner. While India became a nation state through a peaceful revolution, China became a nation state through civil war. Now, when the British Crown handed over power to India, to independent India, has to do with territorial claims based on history or ethnicity or nationalism. And this brings us to the five-finger theory of Mao Zedong, where Tibet is the palm of China and Bhutan, Ladakh, Nepal, and Sikkim are its five fingers. Now, China occupied Tibet in 1950, which was an initial clash of interests. However, New Delhi-Beijing relations remained cordial. Thereafter, in 1954, there was a cartographic dispute where China, in an official publication, The Brief History of Modern China, showed vast tracts of erstwhile Soviet Central Asia, Southeast Asia, as the historical frontiers of China. Similarly, Bhutan, Nepal, Sikkim, and Assam were also depicted similarly. In March 1959, there was a Khampa revolt in Lhasa, Tibet, and the Dalai Lama fled China, or fled Tibet. And in 1959, that is when India-China relations began to deteriorate. The geography revolves around the line of actual control, which is now a major contest between the two countries. Now, the line of actual control, as everyone knows, is not delineated on the ground. And here we have to make the distinction between a frontier and a border. A frontier is all about inhospitable territory, while a border is a much more clearly demarcated line between the two countries. As everybody here in this audience knows, New Delhi and Beijing have differing perceptions over the line of actual control. It is the Chinese premier, late Chinese premier Chou En-lai, who coined the term line of actual control. While India, actual control is all about the extent of administrative and military control that each side exercises over their territory. Now, while India prefers to accept the pre-1962 claim, China prefers the post-1962 or post-conflict territory as their perception of the line of actual control. And this is what leads to patrol clashes between the Indian and Chinese armies from time to time. The fact that on the ideology, the fact that the two countries had differing ideologies, the fact that both countries had differing ideologies made them, created a level of hostility between them. While India was democratically, politically modeled along the US Western Bloc, it was still part of the Soviet camp in a sense. So these ideological differences between India and China created their own problems. Now, coming to the military element of the conflict, it was the famous forward policy. My friends in the military don't hesitate to say that the architect of the India-China conflict was the Bola Nath Malik, the Director Intelligence Bureau. Because the Director Intelligence Bureau advised the political leadership at that time. The Director Intelligence Bureau advised the political leadership of the time that the forward policy would not pose a problem. However, the Indian military intelligence said that the forward policy would create problems, but the Civilian Intelligence Bureau's version prevailed. Now, post 1962, there have been three major clashes. The first was Nathula in 1967, where India used the role of force, and the matter ended there. The next was in Tulungla in 1975, when an Assam Rifles patrol was ambushed and 10 soldiers were killed. The third was Sumdarongchu in 1986-87, when the two sides got into a military standoff, and eventually, to my understanding, this led to the Rajiv Gandhi Deng Xiaoping summit diplomacy in December 1988. Now, after that, in 2000, there have been several, since 2000, there have been several territorial incursions by the Chinese side. And this has been managed at the military level and diplomatic level time and again. Now, how does one understand, with this small backdrop, how does one understand India-China relations? There is the pre-conflict phase up to 1962, and then there's been the post-conflict phase from 1963 to 1975. The normalization phase from 1976 to 1988, and the political relations phase from 1988 to 1991. And then you have the post-Cold War phase from 1992 to about 2008. Now, throughout these phases, the border dispute remains a constant. Now, what is the way forward for India to handle its relations with China, which in terms of strategic stature is far superior to India? Perhaps the only principle is collective security. If the diplomatic corps, the Indian diplomatic corps, is able to do its job and get the right and powerful allies on India's side, India has got to be at the forefront of this struggle. So these are the perspectives that shape the India-China relations. The fact that the economic relationship between the two countries at one time peaked to such an extent that China was India's largest trading partner was a positive sign, to the extent that the border dispute went onto the back burner. But for some reason, as Mr. Ranade pointed out, the domestic dynamics of China is such that it has led to a very aggressive and ambitious behavior on its borders, expansionist behavior. Now, this has created problems for China itself and India's relationship with China. On that note, I shall stop and I shall hand over to the next speaker. Thank you. 1967, where India used the role of force and the matter ended there. The next was in Tulungla in 1975 when an Assam Rifles patrol was ambushed and 10 soldiers were killed. The third was Sumdarongchu in 1986-87 when the two sides got into a military standoff, and eventually, to my understanding, this led to the Rajiv Gandhi Deng Xiaoping summit diplomacy in December 1988. Now, after that, in 2000, there have been several, since 2000, there have been several territorial incursions by the Chinese side. And this has been managed at the military level and diplomatic level time and again. Now, how does one understand, with this small backdrop, how does one understand India-China relations? There is the pre-conflict phase up to 1962, and then there's been the post-conflict phase from 1963 to 1975. The normalization phase from 1976 to 1988, and the political relations phase from 1988 to 1991. And then you have the post-Cold War phase from 1992 to about 2008. Now, throughout these phases, the border dispute remains a constant. Now, what is the way forward for India to handle its relations with China, which in terms of strategic stature is far superior to India? Perhaps the only principle is collective security. If the diplomatic corps, the Indian diplomatic corps, is able to do its job and get the right and powerful allies on India's side, India has got to be at the forefront of this struggle. So these are the perspectives that shape the India-China relations. The fact that the economic relationship between the two countries at one time peaked to such an extent that China was India's largest trading partner was a positive sign, to the extent that the border dispute went onto the back burner. But for some reason, as Mr. Ranade pointed out, the domestic dynamics of China is such that it has led to a very aggressive and ambitious behavior on its borders, expansionist behavior. Now, this has created problems for China itself and India's relationship with China. On that note, I shall stop and I shall hand over to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thanks, Professor Chengappa, for that coverage of the evolution of the political and diplomatic dialogue on the border, and also giving the proposal of collective security. Let me move on to General Shankar, who is going to talk about the strategic and the military implications of this boundary issue. Go ahead, Ravi.
Thanks a lot, Narsi. At the outset, I'd like to thank Commodore Vasan for having called me for this event. And I'd also like to thank all of you for taking the time out to listen to me. What I'm going to do is something a little different from what so far has happened. I'll not look back, so I will look forward, right? And I'll start with what's happening on the border. So I will start there. I have a little presentation to put across to you, which I will just show you. I've been told to speak on this issue of Sino-border, Indian border dispute in the Indo-Himalayan region and give you a strategic and defense perspective. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to base my talk on 5 of these articles which I've written in succession in the past 1.5 months, where I've carried a review of the situation every week, 2 weeks. And the last article, Mythical Dragon, Real China, is a it's in 3 parts. 2 parts I've already published. The 3rd part will get published tomorrow. And you can see my articles on www.gunnershot.com. Why I'm saying is I'm not one of the regular guys in this circuit. Okay. Now, we all know that, we are stuck head on with China in the Aksai-Chin region. But simultaneously, China, I'm giving you a broader picture, is gone to the South China Sea. It's getting after Taiwan. It's also trying to do something in the Senkaku Islands with Japan. Aggressive and assertive, as Mr. Ranade had said. And US has reacted to it. Now, let's look at it a little holistically. What is it? China is in a 2-front situation today, right? It's recovering from vast internal floods. Some of the worst floods it has seen in probably a century. Economic recovery, by even very optimistic standards, is patchy. And I go with what Mr. Ranade had said, that the actual thing would be a little worse. Their food situation is grim. We must go back in history. China has had huge issues of famines. If you go back in the Mao Zedong's time, they lost 30 to 40 million people in the Great Famine. And that specter is coming up for many reasons. They've had some unprecedented diseases. Corona, everyone knows. But what people is not listening, they've had Black Plague for the first time. Brucellosis, African swine flu. African swine flu they've been having for the past 3 years, where all their pork products have been, all their pigs have been slaughtered. They're in a bad situation. And of course, we all know they have trouble in Taiwan, Hong Kong, Mongolia, Tibet, and Xinjiang. This is the worst time for China to go to a war, and they've chosen it. So if you look at the first and the last bullet, the 2-front situation, the worst time for war. It couldn't be worse. Okay. Now, what we'll do is we'll focus on Ladakh and what the present situation is. I'll just orient you with this map. This is the area of Pangong Tso and Fingers, which has hit the national headlines and fully. Now, to put this in picture, the main mountain ridges in this is the Depsang area. I've not put the LAC because LAC and all those lines are so many that no one knows where it is, what it is. So we'll not try and define it also, right? This is the area of the Depsang Plains, the Changchenmo Range, right? This is the area north of Pangong Tso. Then north of Pangong Tso, you have the Sasar Massif. Then the Shiok River, which comes down from the north, swings around the Sasar Massif and goes northwest. And the Nubra, which comes down from the Siachen and goes down. Now, if you look a little further south, you have the Ladakh Range, which is a major range in this area, right? And it flows here. Then you have the Kailash Range. This is a small Kailash Range. And this is the Spangor Tso, the ridge north of the Spangor Tso. This is the Indus River, which enters at Demchok, comes, takes a turn at Dumti, and keeps going further northwest. This red line, I've written only partway, is the G219 or the Western Express Highway, as we all knew at some point of time. So what happened? We're going to get into winter. So what happens when winter sets in? Because this is the immediate forecast, right? You get very clear skies in these areas, all across Himalayas. It's very good for flying, but the ground is also hard, so very good for movement, especially tracked vehicles and off-road vehicles is easier now. And then the Indus freezes. In fact, most of the places freezes. The Pangong Tso freezes completely. You can drive a tank on it. So mobility is much better. But then you have extreme cold, you have high winds, which is there. It's a plain area of 14,000 feet. The plains have touch about 14,000. You go higher into the hills, it's 16 to 18,000 feet. Does it preclude operations? It does not preclude operations. But then large operations are difficult and logistics are difficult in this area at this point of time. There is something funny which is going to happen in this Himalayas from this month to the next month onwards. It's called the jet stream. The jet stream flows all along the Himalayas. What is this? There are closed tubes of air, high speeds, broad 50 to 100 kilometers in width and dimensions. Why am I saying this? When people say China has got a lot of air power, they got missiles and this and that, they don't function here. None. It's very difficult to guide a missile or hold a UAV during this jet stream conditions. Very unpredictable. So it's got a huge bearing on how operations carry out, and it's got a huge bearing on the effectiveness of a force and using the aerial power altogether. Not that it can't be done, but you need a lot of expertise. In my opinion, and it's a very considered opinion, PLA doesn't have it. Okay, now we all know north of Pangong Tso what they've done. They've come, held on to some part of fingers. They are present in this area of Gogra, Konkala and all that. And they are here at Depsang. In Depsang, though no one has said it, but it appears they've intruded somewhere into our area. Fingers, of course, we all know about it. Now, what have we done? We've occupied the Kailash range where this little blue thing is. And this is where it stands today, the Indo-Sino-India situation. If you put it in a matrix, India has a tactical and the strategic advantage. China has a territorial advantage. So virtually you are in a stalemate. If you break the stalemate, there are payoffs and all. We'll just see what it is. But I'd like to highlight one thing to you. What we've done in this Chushul area is we've opened the Chushul gateway to Aksai Chin. It's like a butterfly effect. For them, if they had occupied it, it would have opened the way to Ladakh. We've opened it, it opens the way to Rudok, right? You have to see it in the larger picture, not in the fact that you deployed 2 troops there, 3 battalions there, 4 divisions there, and you'll go incrementally one region. No. It's a major tactical and strategic advantage we've got in this area. Okay. Now, how do you see the future panning out? It depends on these 3 factors. What is the aim, what is the risk, and the escalation factor. Why China has come here and done what it has, there are n number of aims put together. But I don't know whether China itself knows it. But in any case, that's history. Today, from here on, what's next is dependent on these 3 issues, right? Let's see our own story. Where are we and where are we going to go? Our aim, in my way of looking at it, has to be about achieving parity by a quid pro quo action. That means you need some territorial parity that you have to bite into China. And of course, if the Chinese decide to attack us, we have to blunt any offensive and mount a limited counteroffensive to evict lodgements or get into better bargaining positions. And of course, we need to do maneuver in mountains to get to advantage. And this is one great advantage we have. And this is one great disadvantage or drawback which China has shown. They're not able to maneuver in mountains, right? Now, we need to ensure that our risk factor is low and our escalation factor is low. Now, let's look at China. If you analyze China as a whole, and this is what I've been saying, right, from ever since May, they've gone into something what I call belligerent war avoidance. Belligerence, but they've avoided war. They've shown a marked reluctance to fight. Their inexperience in this altitude has come through. And I would say China's overall situation is not very good, right? Much as what international people have written and some of our own stories have come out, I don't think they're in a great situation. Okay, what is the further course of actions for China? If things freeze today, it's loss of face. And that's coming out in a lot of commentaries in national and international. Some of our pessimists have started saying, yeah, China is losing face. Okay. What should be their aim? their aim would be to achieve a victory, or at least get into a situation where they can declare a victory or have a face-saving exit. Today, none of these three exist. They would like to keep a low-risk option. Why a low-risk option? The risks for doing anything and losing are far too high due to the very reasons the previous three speakers had highlighted, especially in a situation where there is some political uncertainty with Xi Jinping, and he's gone in for a high-risk option in tackling India. And they would like to keep this escalation low. For the simple reason, anything escalating here means putting more troops in along the Indian border, denuding or not having enough to face the Americans on the other front. And that leads them into great problems, right? What they would like to do, they'd like to wear down India in talks and scare us to vacate the Kailash Range. To all their talks, in any TV channel, or for that matter, any of their public discourse, they want us to vacate the Kailash Range. They know that they are in a very great disadvantage with the Kailash Range, right? They will not vacate the areas captured. That's not their history. Even in Wangdung and Samrangcho, they have not vacated. We did what we did. We got a lot of things, but they didn't vacate. So to expect that the Chinese will vacate the Fingers area or whatever they've got is, I don't think so. Right. They have an option of extending the conflict to the east, further east, that is to Sikkim and Arunachal. But then I don't think the PLA has the strength. If you do the numbers matching, and this is not my own assessment, I've been convinced of it from a long time. International studies have proven that PLA does not have the numbers left anymore to tackle Indian army in an offensive. For the simple reason, ever since Xi Jinping came into being, or rather came into power, he's been transforming the PLA and getting it oriented overseas. And he's cut down the PLA ground force. So that is why PLA today doesn't have the strength to carry out any major thing. The comprehensive national power and all is poppycock, because Ladakh doesn't represent Ladakh, and for that matter Sikkim or Arunachal, they don't respect comprehensive national power. Ground is ground. You can't beat that. Okay, now let's look at the situation a little more granularly. Employment of armor in Depsang is feasible, but then we've mobilized. It's a head-on situation. It's just going to be like two bulls heading into each other without any maneuver. So there's really no go. It will be a kilometer here or there, and that's going to swing. But the mountain area north of the Pangong Tso and south of Depsang, this Changchanmo range, is critical, and this is where we come in to play. Anything if you think they get any advantage here, it can get neutralized here, and in fact the situation can get reversed, right? So the chances for the Chinese are they can get hold of some territory, but losing it is also great there. Okay, they can evict us from the heights. That's the next option they have south of Pangong Tso. Well, our men are pretty well entrenched. It's now almost a month since our boys have got onto the ridges. They're dug in. Our defenses are getting coordinated better by the day, right? So it's very difficult to put in so many troops with the force ratios which are required in these heights. If the Chinese come in here, other areas open up for us. It's not a zero-sum game, right? Okay. And one more thing we have to understand, when a lot of commentary is there that the Chinese can get so many troops, this, that, and all. A particular area of ground can take only that many more troops, because there's logistics involved, there's deployment involved, and hell of a lot of things. Without going into it, there's that much only what China can do. With this kind of a deployment, we are at virtually I would say a status quo kind of an affair. It has going to be headbutting from here. Okay, what do? We hold tight, right? If the opportunity arises, and it will arise, I have no doubt about it, we should execute a quid pro quo auction for a bargain. Some territory we should get. Should we do it now? Not necessary. Take some time. What's the hurry in the end? After all, the Sundronchu and the Wangdung incident went on for 8 years. So time is on our side, right? We must open the Tibet option. Tibet, they've already, Xi Jinping has taken the trouble of putting out a thing for solidifying the Tibet border and also reforming the Tibetan society. He wants to communalize, the Dalai Lama's and Buddhism. So I think we need to use it. As it is, our use of the special forces has fired up a lot of issues. So we have an advantage there. Because we shouldn't vacate Kailash range at any cost. I don't think we should even talk of it. And I think India has to take a different stand on this whole story. We need to use military as a tool of diplomacy. If you look back, 1962, poor diplomacy cost us this whole thing. We didn't take the military on board when we dealt with China. That's history, right? Hajipir. If Hajipir was with us, the whole history of J&K would have been different, but we gave it back. 1971, we gave back 93,000 PWs. We could have solved the thing. Doklam, as 2017, we were more interested in saving China's face than rubbing it in, right? For whatever reason, maybe we were not confident in this and that, but I think the time has come now for us to take a stand. And I again agree with what Mr. Jadav Ranade had said. What we do today is going to have a great impact for our future. We'll talk of it a little later. And of course, we had to force multiply our military options with economic and geopolitical actions, and we have hell of a lot. After all, it is based on our actions with the TikTok and Huawei that USA has followed up, and the champions are getting hit. And unless we hit those champions, things won't change. Okay, what is the geostrategic fallout? The only two countries which can keep China at bay today are India and USA. And China has gone into a problem with both of them. So we know where this is going to head. We are talking of collective security. Yes, we are already there. Why did we get into a strategic partnership with USA? Why do we have a strategic partnership with Australia, or for that matter, Japan? And I'm sure that it's at play. You don't need USA to come and fight for us in China, in Himalayas. We don't need to go and sail with our navy into the South China Sea. We take care of the Indo part of it. The Pacific part of it can be taken care of by Australia, Japan, and US, and things will be normal. And let me tell you, China, as far as I'm concerned, is caught in a vice. There's a great opportunity for us as a nation to get rid of the ghost of 1962. Indian role in world affairs will change if we go through this and hold firm. And I don't see why we don't have. We need to step back. We need to grasp this opportunity. People will come say it's going to cost more, but then nations have to pay a cost to do better in life. This is a security which we will be giving for everyone, and this, I think, puts us on the leadership role in global affairs. Now, at the same time, where is China going? I feel China is a society without a check, right? They've got diseases, they've got problems of aging, they've got ethnic disparity, they've got huge problems of pollution, agriculture, their degradation, climate change, diplomatic isolation, military limitation, and economic trimming. If you put all these three things together, all these issues together, and you analyze the Belt and Road Initiative and the Made in China 2025 initiative which they've done, which was again mentioned by Mr. Ranade, you'll see that actually China has taken a big hit. And I don't think they're going to get into the great dream of rejuvenation of the Chinese this thing, right? And I think we just have to hold firm and sort China out. That's what generally I've had to say. Any questions? I'll take them on at the end of the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi. That was a good expose of what is happening on the line of actual control and what needs to be done about it. Am I audible?
Yeah.
I'll take just 2-3 minutes to cover a few issues that have come up in the morning through the three speakers. Firstly, along the security domain, you please understand the security domains of China involved from somewhere around 1956 onwards, when Mr. Mao Zedong talked about active defense. That is the first tenet which still holds good even today. So this is something that we need to keep in mind, the active defense concept, which talks about we don't have to wait for, in simple terms, we don't have to wait for the adversary to launch the offensive. We can preempt it if it is required, which implies that China can take the initiative to stop any kind of offensive that comes onto it. That is point number one. Point number two, one good way of understanding China's evolution of security thought is through their defense white papers. Starting from 1998 onwards, every alternate year they have been publishing, except for a few variations. But more importantly, you should look at 2013, 2015, and 2019 defense white papers, and add that with 2006 defense white paper. You will find the timelines, you will find the evolution of the security thought that is coming up very clearly. And what it implies in one line is that from a territorial kind of defense, they are looking outwards and trying to go global. So this is something that comes clear out of this defense white paper and the security thought. While Professor Deepak talked about smart power, what US is doing at this point in time is to use sharp power. Like we know, smart power is a combination of hard and soft power, whereas the sharp power that US is trying to use is, again, a question which has come up in the chat box as I see it, is to drive a wedge between the people and the Communist Party. That is the kind of sharp power that you can look at. On the collective security, I would impose a little caution. Please understand, collective security is all fine, but when you have to get into a situation like what we have, I think you need to be prepared to take it all by yourself. There are limitations to collective security that we should be aware of. On the claim lines, please understand the claim lines are well known. It is not that the Indian Army doesn't know the claim line or the Chinese don't know the claim line. The issue that comes up is there is no congruence or there is no mutually accepted kind of a line. That is where these problems keep coming up all the time. And the next point is on Depsang. Depsang, please understand, I mean, there are a lot of media people here in this audience. Depsang, there's nothing major that has happened in this time, along with this summer. This is basically an old legacy of 2013, etc., which is still continuing, which is being resolved differently than the talks that you see which are happening on resolution of the issue on the LAC. The issue of Depsang is not part of the other major problem that you are discussing with these military level talks and WMCC, etc., etc. That is supposed to be resolved locally. And so this is nothing new. So somewhere down the line, the media has caught on to this, and this has become an issue which has come up this time around. The next thing is on the PLA numbers. Please understand the way the PLA numbers have reduced. This is the 11th or 12th reduction of numbers that are going on in the PLA. This is nothing new. In 2005, they reduced 200,000. Now they have reduced 300,000. They are also trying to reduce the number of the ground forces. But please understand, majority of them have been rehabilitated elsewhere within the PLA. Why I am saying this? Please understand this. When the initial reductions took place around 98, etc., 60 divisions en masse got converted to People's Armed Police. Similarly, in 2000, when 200,000 people got reduced, you found them getting mostly they were logistic troops and also the other extra troops that they had, like cultural troops, sports teams, etc. Similarly, in 300,000, again, you will find a number of them getting rehabilitated elsewhere. Like, for example, the Marine Corps, which had just about 10,000 people in 2 brigades, is supposed to be increased to 100,000. Where are these 90,000 people coming from? Obviously, from people who have been reduced in numbers, the numbers have been accommodated elsewhere. So please don't go under the premise that PLA has been reducing and so you will find it weakened. I'm sure that is not the case. As far as the core interests, which again Professor Deepak talked about, the core interests have been laid down in various writings. But what we need to look at is the core interests are actually expanding and changing. That is something that you need to keep in mind. Like, for example, South China Sea came up. that became a core interest. Of course, Taiwan, etc. were a core interest earlier. But the core interests of China are changing. Therefore, you need to keep in mind what is going to be your next core interest that is going to change. So that is what we need to keep thinking about it. As far as the escalation is concerned, in addition to what General Shankar mentioned, I would like to only tell you two things. One is the increased transparency of what is happening. That is basically because if you are given 4 months to the adversary to build up and thereafter you want to escalate, I think that will be one of the foolish ways to do. I'm sure my course mates of Ravi as well as Murali will agree to this. If you have to do it, you have to achieve that surprise. That surprise has been long last. Second is the increased battlefield transparency. Now, even if a pin moves on the other side or on our side, it is visible. So obviously, without lack of surprise, having allowed each other to build up, escalation is something that we need to take it with a pinch of salt. And not to vacate Kailash range, I think there are a number of people who mentioned that. I don't think we are planning to do that as of now. Let's see how these things will pan out. And the last point I have before I open up for the questions is on the playing of the Tibet card. There are a lot of discussions which I have seen on the TV and other arguments that take place on open up Tibet, open up Xinjiang, open up Hong Kong, open up this, open up that. Please understand, these things are to be done with a lot of caution. These things are not at the whims and fancies of a debate here and there that we can do. There are red lines that we have. And those red lines, we have red lines, China has red lines. So when you want to cross those red lines, both these sides have to be extremely careful. So this is the point I would leave it with. Now let me open up for the questions. How do you want to go ahead with the questions, Bala? You want me to, you'll take it on from the chat box?
Yes, sir.
Or you want me to?
I'll be reading from the chat box, sir.
Fair enough. Go ahead with the questions, please.
Yes, sir.
Just 1 minute. The last point on the CNP growth. There was some issue that came up on the CNP growth. I kept it as the last one. CNP growth is something that we need to understand. When comprehensive national power of countries grow, the influence of those countries have to flow outwards. Unfortunately, if you read Robert Kaplan and others, unfortunately, China is suffering from a revenge of geography. And the revenge of geography is on 3 sides, north, west, and south. You have landlocked countries. So he can't push that national power into those areas. It is going to be resisted very, very easily, very hard, with a very hard stance. The way easily he can actually expand that comprehensive national power is towards the sea, which is open, which is actually the territorial issues, claims, etc. are still being questioned, and it is easily he can influence that particular area. Today, there are questions being asked whether South China Sea is China's lake or otherwise. Immaterial. The point that comes up is the effort that is being put in by the freedom of navigation operations and other things have had a minuscule effect on the Chinese influence in South China Sea. Therefore, you need to find various other options to hem this in. So that is the point I wanted to leave it with. Thereafter, I'll open it for the questions. Please go ahead, Bala.
Thank you very much, sir. The question is by Commodore Vasan, sir. He has asked, the US has carefully tried to drive a wedge between the CCP and the people by targeting the party and not the people. How do you see this panning out in the coming years? Will it succeed when China's deep state has all the measures in place for subjugating its people? This is posed to Sri Jayadev Nandade, sir.
Thank you. I think the US is decided on, as I said earlier, restraining or containing China's growth. What they have identified as maybe a first step that they need to take, or an immediate step that they need to take, is to ease Xi Jinping out of office. The secondary, and of course, I think the ultimate, how to call it, ambition, but the dream of the Republicans always is to get rid of the Chinese Communist Party. That is what the United States also wants. So this can open up a number of situations, and the US is trying to push this. There are two things. Firstly, they are trying to drive a wedge between the leadership and the Chinese Communist Party and the people. By announcing these sanctions against Chinese Communist Party officials who either are actively involved in the formulation or implementation of policies which lead to repression of the local people, like, for example, in Xinjiang or Hong Kong, Tibet is also on the list. They are trying to inhibit the party officials from carrying out the instructions that that Beijing wants them to do. So that is the first step. The only person who has responded to this sanction so far is Chen Guangguo, the party secretary of Xinjiang, who said, I'm not concerned, I'm not bothered about this. But he's the only one. So the others must be weighing their options and wondering what to do. The second, as I mentioned earlier, was the announcement by Pompeo. It hasn't yet been made into, it hasn't been yet enforced, but he has proposed that US visas be denied to all members of the Chinese Communist Party. And this has sent shockwaves down the party. There are 92 million members of the Chinese Communist Party. So it directly affects, you can say, about 300 to 400 million people, because each one of them has 3 to 4 direct dependents. It means, translated, that their ambitions to go abroad, particularly to the United States for studies, is now jeopardized. Their children going to study there is in jeopardy. Their assets, which they have parked either in the US or in Canada or in Australia, is now vulnerable. And all the properties that they have bought, as in Indian terms we call it benami, all the properties that they have bought are also now vulnerable. So the question is the US going to push for this or not? Are they going to go ahead and do it or not? So I think the trajectory that they are on is to push this. Now, if this kind of pressure increases, what the US hopes will happen, in my view, is that the party will feel it is under severe pressure, where party members are wavering as to the benefits of being in the party or not. And that is when the party will reach, the dissidents in the party will reach a critical mass and combine with the veteran leaders to tell Xi Jinping that in the interest of the party, you please step down. I think that is the situation that the United States will desire, because they do see that if Xi Jinping had been removed from the equation, China would not have accelerated the pace of its development. So this is what I would respond to this particular question. The second aspect is what I think General Narasimhan touched upon, and since he's in the system, he probably doesn't want to dilate. But what the Americans are looking at is also Xinjiang and Tibet. And we can see how they have, in the last few months, given a higher profile to the problems in Xinjiang. You can see about the re-education of vocational centers, so-called, about the million plus Uyghurs who are in re-education camps. This is all part of a drive, part of a propaganda, what he aptly called sharp power. The second is the manner in which the problems in Mongolia, Inner Mongolia, have suddenly erupted. And there are two aspects. One is, of course, they are protesting against the replacement of the Mongolian language by Mandarin. So it's spreading across Mongolia. The second is the fact that the authorities, that means the PLA, are trying to recruit young Mongolians for the PLA and to send them to the front. So what they're saying is, you have so many more Huns and we are only 4 million Mongolians. Why are you recruiting us to go and fight in Tibet? But this is the kind of problem which again is being highlighted. So I think the Americans are playing on multiple fronts and trying to put the CCP under pressure, the Chinese Communist Party under pressure, and inform the people that the party itself is not concerned about the people, but only to retain power. Thank you.
Bala, just a suggestion. I suggest you go in chronological order, of questions in the chat box, and also give preference to, journalists or others, starting with Rana Banerjee and others. Maybe you can do that. All right.
Thank you, sir. My next question I'm going to pose is by Mr. Rana Banerjee. This is for Shri Jayadev Ranade, sir. He has asked, Andrew Small recently suggested a rethink in China to go slow with CPEC investment in Pakistan because of poor capacity to repay loans there. So investment would be slowed down. What is your view on that, sir? Yes,
Well, I've been saying for a long time that the CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, is a concept as far as China is concerned to extend its power way down into Pakistan and through Pakistan up to the Gwadar, that means into the warm waters of the ocean. The economic part of it was of low priority. And if you look at the CPEC, it's very evident. Even the power projects that have been set up, which are the bulk of the projects there, many of them are thermal plants. They are coal-fired, with coal being imported from Xinjiang. The price per unit, tariff per unit of the power that is generated is double what it already exists in Pakistan today. And the people are already groaning under what they're paying, and they are sort of very reluctant to pay the higher prices, which means that the power plants today are running at a loss. So the Chinese are aware of it. I don't think China's interest in the first place was economic interest in the CPEC. It was a strategic interest, first point. Second, again, if we look at it, the areas of focus of China are Gwadar and in the northern area. The rest of it, they're not really bothered. The third is, in each of these projects, even if the project is so-called a private project between an entity, a private entity in Pakistan and a state-owned enterprise of China, because only state-owned enterprises are involved, the loans are guaranteed by the Pakistani state. In other words, China has no risk. So as far as China is concerned, they're going to take it easy. As long as the army backs it, they're satisfied. And that is the latest move in Pakistan, is to put this CPEC under a separate authority where the army will be able to exercise more direct control. So I think Andrew Small's contention that the economic factor was the prime factor as far as China is concerned, I think is not tenable. What they're concerned about is a strategic base. So if you look at the CPEC carefully, you will find the South Xinjiang military district linking up with the Pakistan military force. You will find access of the Chinese to Gwadar, which has already been probably under the South China Sea or the Southern Theatre Command of China. You will find that the Chinese military literature refers to Gwadar as a logistics base and Karachi as a naval base. So already, as far as the Chinese are concerned, CPEC is certainly the first part of BRI to be operationalized, but it is a strategic interest rather than economic interest.
Thank you, sir. The next question is by Arundhati. She has asked to Ranade, sir, is Beijing concerned about developments between India, Australia, and India-Japan relations? This is his first question. The second one is, where does Quad sits in China's security policy?
I suspect her question is pointing towards Chinese apprehension about an India-Japan and India-Australia arrangement. Here, let me put it that I think many of us exaggerate China's concern about an India-Japan or India-Australia kind of tie-up. And I will give you the reasons for why I say that. Firstly, China has already started talking to the Japanese. They're trying to establish a kind of a relationship where, again, things become slightly normal or less tense without giving up on their territorial ambitions. The Japanese seem to be responding, particularly the Japanese business lobby is keen on continuing the tie-ups with China, which they already have. They're the ones who pressured Shinzo Abe. And I think that kind of an arrangement will continue. I don't see China getting apprehensive of an India-Japan tie-up, though that will be the most, I would say, the one to be most concerned about, until and unless they see the US, Japan, and India becoming closer and looking at things in a coordinated fashion. Second, India, Australia, well, again, what will be the area of operations where we will come in? It will be the South China Sea. I think the Chinese today feel that they are in a comfortable position in the South China Sea, unless, again, the other countries are willing to risk a showdown, a military showdown with the Chinese. I think the appetite for that kind of risk doesn't exist right now. The only country that I see who might come in is the United States into that, and that depends on what happens with Taiwan, etc. So I don't look at that. The Quad itself, it has been discussed for so long. We haven't yet seen it getting a tangible form. I think there are a lot of, to put it frankly, there are a lot of questions about the commitment of each one of the Quad partners to Quad itself and to the security aspect of Quad. What may be more workable in the long term, from my India's point of view, from my point of view, is if we look at a configuration of Vietnam, Singapore, Indonesia, India coming up, backed by Australia and the United States and Japan. I think that would be a more workable and effective kind of a Quad. Countries which have a stake, countries which have a commitment to counter China.
Thank you, sir. The next question is by Commodore Vasan, sir, for Professor Deepak. He has asked, on the growing Asian discontent with regard to China, India has been extremely accommodative. Now, since much has happened, is there any scope for reconciliation between India and China, because India has been pushed from the position of a fence sitter? Professor Deepak?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think, yes, maybe initially, if you see the 50s, especially, and even maybe during the 60s, India seems to be a bit accommodative, supporting China, in various forums and blundering. What we now see that the quid pro quo would have been, a wise option to open up the border negotiations, border for negotiations in 1954 itself, and later, supporting China's claim to the United Nations Security Council throughout. Almost 30 times India has supported. I think apart from these two things, on border, especially as far as territorial concerns are concerned, I don't think India has been accommodative at all. In fact, Chinese, they wanted us to be accommodative, and that is why these various solutions, so-called in form of package deal and so on and so forth, were proposed by China, and so we were not inclined towards those. I think we have been of late accommodative as far as India's economic security is concerned. So this is I have been airing it right from the very beginning. The kind of investment we are seeing in India, from the Chinese, especially in digital India, especially in some of the pharmaceutical, sector, or purchasing of our phaRmaceutical company, though not very, not many, but then there are cases by the Chinese trying to make, forays in these areas, and also, of course, the digital India is, straight away connected with the big data. The big data science, I think we are here slightly, I would say, the latecomers. I remember in 2015 itself, I attended one of the conferences in China on big data, and at that point in time in India, in public, we were not even having a discourse on big data. So here, I think we have compromised a bit, and I hope the government has realized that the sectors we should have invited China, so they are not appropriate. As far as reconciliation is concerned, again, I would see that with China's economic heft, China not willing to share power with us, China seeking parity for smaller nations with India, especially in subcontinent. I don't think China is going to give up much room to India. So therefore, I think we have to to see, how do we rebalance to China. And if that happens, if we are able to do that, so maybe by aligning some of our interest, I'm not saying that, we would slip into the US lap, though the Chinese, so they have already started to say that it is a quasi-military alliance of India and China, of India and the United States to pin down China, from both the sides. So I think if our military security is somewhat aligned with these countries like United States, Japan, and particularly in Indo-Pacific, there may be some scope, because Chinese, they are also not that hard nuts, so they would see the opportunity and then may, accommodate our interest, elsewhere. But I think at this point in time, it appears extremely difficult that the Chinese are in any accommodative mood.
Thank you, Professor Deepak. The next question is by Mr. Prasad. He has asked, prior to the border crisis, there was an impression given from 2014 that there was a very good trade relation between the countries. But now it has taken a 180-degree turn, due to which our business came into great grief. So he has asked, was there no advice from any Indian think tank to the government? He has given this question for the panel.
Please unmute yourself.
Should I take that on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I take that question on?
Please,
I'll also take the question on the CPEC simultaneously. Please understand, nobody was under the illusion that India-China bilateral trade was mutually beneficial. It was very clearly known to everybody that the trade deficit that was increasing with China was affecting our trade relationship. Definitely, there was no doubts about it. It is actually even when the government wanted to impose restrictions on telecom equipment, it is the telecom operators who put pressure to open up that particular market, basically because they were able to get equipment at a cheaper prices. So the issue that comes up is that people were very well aware of the pitfalls of doing business with China. But the fact of the matter is, since they were able to get the equipment and items cheap, they were going there with their eyes open. I don't think there was any doubts on that. Second thing on the CPEC, Andrew Small may say that China should go slow on CPEC. But please understand, CPEC is the flagship project of One Belt, One Road initiative of China. If they say that on CPEC I'm going to go slow, CPEC is not going to be successful, I'm going to create a debt burden for Pakistan. Tell me which other country will come on board of One Belt, One Road. So this suggestion is okay to say that, go slow on CPEC, but China cannot afford to go on CPEC. They have to show progress there. I'm also not in agreement when they say that the other areas have gone slow. Please understand the mainline 1 has been approved. Please understand that the Amar Basha Dam has been approved. Please understand Gwadar has been approved. Please understand the highways have been approved. Now they are looking at going into Balochistan, the western route of CPEC. I don't think they're going slow. They went slow because of COVID. The investments have slowed down, I can see that. But I don't think they'll be able to go really slow on CPEC because they can't show anything to the world thereafter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. There's one question by a young researcher. He has asked why there is so much paranoia, if we can say, in the CCP, considering that the business tycoon Ren Jianqing was detained over his comments over Xi Jinping's handling of the virus. Is the emperor, as called by the tycoon, afraid of criticism?
I think Mr. Jaidev Ranade can answer that. That may be a better one.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Ran Sachang. He's a princeling, as we all know. And the princelings were a group who also came out and criticized Xi Jinping. In fact, they wrote a letter, which was again posted on the internet, where they asked for an emergency meeting and to remove Xi Jinping from office. There were others also who have done it. In fact, things had reached a pitch. So even businessmen like Jack Ma of Alibaba, Lee Chuanze of Lenovo, put their signatures to a letter which they handed over to the Chinese Premier Li Keqiang, and the letter was addressed to Xi Jinping, asking for a lot of reforms. One thing in all these letters was that they asked for the release of Ran Zheqiang. Ran Zheqiang himself had been kidnapped or abducted by the authorities, and later on they said, we have apprehended him and arrested him. Now, what Xi Jinping has done by reacting is, he has, as I told you, he has reacted. He has doubled down and he has reacted by unleashing all these ideological campaigns and cracking down on people who have criticized him. He is cracking down on them, like, for example, Shu Chang-run, the professor, Kai Xia, Shu Chiu, all three have been dismissed from their jobs, their pensions have been forfeit, and all their monies that they had have been confiscated. So I forget the manner in which they described it, but one of them said, I've been left like a piece of wood in the sea, I mean, without anything to sustain myself. But he has cracked that. That is exceptional punishment. Again, Ran Zheqiang has been awarded an 18-year sentence. Wei Qingshang at the time of the democracy was 79 and all got a 15-year sentence. But he has been given an 18-year sentence, which is very harsh. So these are the kind of punishments that Xi Jinping is now meting out in order to shore his own position and to send a signal that no one will be spared, whether you're a princeling or not. And secondly, in order to blunt the United States attacks on the CCP. So I think we need to look at it in that perspective, that he's doing it.
Thank you very much, sir. There is a question posted by Dr. Sanjay Kumar. He has asked to Professor Deepak, you have described about the comprehensive security of President Xi. Is it possible to contextualize the comprehensive security concept in terms of its discourse on core interests?
Yes, I think that is exactly why he has come up with this this concept, comprehensive security concept, and of course, I don't think it is quite an overhaul. I think it is a continuation of what China has been doing over the years. So whether it is during the revolution, under Mao, or socialist construction, and then the reform period. And it is continuation. Only thing is, as General Narasimhan said, that given the change in domestic and international situation, so China has been incorporating various other facets into its core interest. For example, largely these core interests, so they remains as they have been defined in this 2011 the white paper. And interestingly, these were elaborately discussed by one Fudan University professor, Shanding Li, on 25th of September in an article. It's called So China will not guarantee that it will not open the first shot in. And it was discussed in context of these core interests, and where this national sovereignty, territorial integrity, national security, national unification, and political system of China guaranteed by Chinese constitution, economic security, so on and so forth. So they were, dealt with. And then Professor Shen, so he said that, so China will not hesitate from opening the first shot, if these are infringed upon. So I think what Xi Jinping's comprehensive national comprehensive security concept means at this point in time, it is to secure the regime for himself, his ultimate leadership in the Communist Party of China, and Ren Zheqiang and Kai Xia, so also they are just I would say small fries in overall system where he wants to cleanse these and various other elements, those who oppose or throw a challenge. Because ultimately, I believe that these concepts, the core concepts, so they are integrated, they are intertwined with their domestic politics, with their domestic economy, and with their, I would say, neighborhood as well as global policies. So we have to see in this context, and also the kind of concepts or initiatives so they have launched, including this Belt and Road or rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. So they are discussed within these concepts or core concerns. So I think if we read them with these, so then we would be able to get a clearer picture so what China means by its comprehensive security concept.
Thank you, Professor. This is a question to elicit views from two different General Shankar and General Shankar sir and General Narasimhan sir. Commodore Vasan sir has asked, would like to hear his view on the need for continued commitment and resolve of India not to vacate the Kailash heights, coming under illusion of China withdrawing, which is not going to happen knowing past precedents. May I request General Shankar sir to come in first?
Yeah. The heights which we have occupied, basically the Kailash range, which I did say, it opens up, it's like a butterfly effect, both ways. It opens up a lot of our options which were hitherto not there. So there is no way we can vacate it strategically or militarily, right? And as of now, that's the only bargain we have in this entire situation. So I don't think we can give it away. But then, when I speak to people, when I discuss this issue with many of my contemporaries, peers, and various things, there's a fear. And the fear is, will we revert? Our history, like I told you, is not very great on this. Right? Will we count down? Will we give it back? Whatever happened after Doklam, there are two sides to Doklam. We did a great job, is fine. But after that, our history again said, look, the very notion that we were trying to save Xi Jinping's face to get a face-saving exit for China told us how we were approaching this whole story. We were not confident. But my personal take is I think we've gone past that stage. The way the government has been acting, whether in banning all these apps, whether in curtailing economic activity, or the way we built up almost a mirror deployment after the initial hesitation which we had, or for whatever reason, I don't think we'll get back. In fact, my own assessment is that we're going to press it home. That's why I said there's no hurry. We should do something more to neutralize whatever territorial gain we have. I brought this point up because I need to convey this fear of a lot of people and ensure that it goes up the chain and people have said, don't vacate it. And this is something which we need to rally ourselves on. Right? I hope I made the point which the Commodore was raising. And I'm glad that, my friend Narasimhan has clarified it further. I don't think, thank you.
So the issue that comes up is there are two things. There are two questions. One is on the hesitations of history, is what again Commodore Vasan has asked, and about this. On the Kailash range, please understand that this action has been taken. We'll have to wait and see as to how this pans out. And I am no person who is has got some sense of tactical knowledge would advise anything to vacate Kailash range. It has given you tremendous amount of advantages, and we need to probably keep on maintaining that particular posture. The second thing on the hesitations of history, I think Ravi and Shankar has already mentioned this, that I think the past is gone. We have now conveyed to the Chinese in many forums, in both track 1, track 1.5, track 2, whatever you may call it, that the boundary issue is going to have a bearing on the other aspects of the relationship. which was not the case earlier. Even during Doklam in 2017, Doklam was raging, but your political activity was carrying on, your economic activity was carrying on. There was no adverse effect on those issues. But that is not the case anymore. I think that matter has gone down quite clearly, and I see a bit of nervousness in the Chinese system when I interact with people to say that no, we should treat borders separately, and we should keep it at its place, and then we should go ahead with economic activity and everything else. They are more interested in the economic activity than the boundary issue whenever we discuss this. So obviously there is a sense of nervousness that has come up, and that I think is a good thing for us, and we need to press home on that.
Thank you, sir. The next question is posed to. Yes, please, sir. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah. You see, when this whole business started, if you saw the Chinese commentary, it was quite aggressive. As days went by, and when the PLA couldn't make any more, headway, I wouldn't say it was the aggression started winding down. Today, when you see the commentary from China, and when you read, you see, I've not been to China. I don't know who these fellows, all these chaps are, which others have spoken. But I go by reports, international reports, right? And reports coming out of China. I see their commentary has toned down. I see there's a caution within China. They have now started arguing that, look, let's not get involved with India. There's a viewpoint coming across, which was not there, say, 3 months back. And that tells us that we've got a handle on them. And that gives us a lot of confidence also. And I'm sure others also have better view on this issue at the government level. Thank you.
Thank you, General. This next question posed to General Shankar, sir, by Ms. Arundhati. She has asked, can we anticipate future flashpoints on the LAC? This is the first question. As a corollary, she has asked, do you feel India should change its responding to situation stance to long-term vision for LAC? And the final question is, what effects militarization of Himalayan region could have on the environment considering its fragile nature?
Right. Pertinent questions. I'll answer the third question first. You see, the Himalayan region has been militarized now for ever since I joined the army. One of my first postings in 1977 was to Sikkim. So we are past that stage, right? Whatever fragility is there in the Himalayas and whatever militarization is there will only continue. And when nations get into this kind of a confrontation, two great civilizations get into this thing, nature is just suffers. That's a hard reality. Okay, and can we anticipate future flashpoints? We know where the flashpoints are. We know where they can come up. It is not as if we don't know, right? How do you respond to them? I don't think we could have responded better than the way we've actually responded. There's a lot of commentary within or Indian circles know that we were late, our intelligence was poor, and a lot of A, Y, B, C, D. No. Again, my view was, if we had done a misstep at Nakula, we would have had a big problem in the east, right? Again, if we had allowed them to come down to Galwan, we would have had a big problem, right? We can. The thing is, so far we've been defensive in our orientation. We said, let's hold the LAC and we should, be defensive about it. But I think from here on, after having seen what the LAC is, I won't say what the LAC, what the PLA is all about. I have my own views about the PLA. It's one thing to have a lot of equipment, one thing to have anything, but it's a different thing to have a capability. And that capability has to translate into fighting. Ultimately, people have to fight on ground. It doesn't matter you have a big navy or not. You have a navy which can't leave your shores. So I don't think China has got what's coming out. What's coming out as an analysis is, I don't think China has got that kind of a military power that it can go and rule the world. That's another 50 years away, right? I don't think it has the capability of settling the LAC to its own way of thinking. So what do we do? So far, we've been thinking of being defensive. Is it time for us to start thinking other way? Is it time for us to say, look, we are here. We know what to do. It doesn't matter. You try something and we'll do this. Right? So far, we have not said that. We have not said, you try something, we'll do this. That is something which we have to start talking. and then things will start stabilizing. Right? I hope I've answered that question.
Thank you, General. There's a question by Commodore Vasan sir. He has asked on the China-Pakistan occupied Kashmir economic corridor. Has not India been very defensive? We have made some noise, but if it was China, he would mobilize his military and ensure that someone in a disputed territory was kicked out. We again have been accommodative to allow someone to invest $50 billion in an area that is ours. Now we have made it difficult for us to get China out, even if the territory is given back due to whatever reason. So is it fait accompli? I think it's open to the panelists.
Should I take it on, or anybody else wants to answer?
Yeah, take it.
Okay.
You have a better view.
Sorry?
You have a better view. Top.
Okay. On the China-Pakistan economic corridor and calling it as CPOK-EC, the only observation I have, or maybe a couple of more, the only observation I have is that if you call it CPOK-EC, you are actually closing your eyes to the other parts of the CPEC. You please understand the CPEC is not only related to POK. It is related to access to Arabian Sea. It is related to access to Gwadar, which is more important. And also it is supposed to be developing Balochistan, which is on the west. You are actually losing a larger portion of CPEC if you call it CPOK-EC. That is the only issue. And please don't underestimate the Indian government's resolve. Please understand, India was the only country which stayed away from One Belt, One Road initiative when the first conference took place. Including US, everybody participated. It is India which stood out and said that, sorry, this is not acceptable to us and we will not participate in this whole game. Until today, there is pressure from China for us to actually sign on to some part of CPEC which is not related to POK. We have not done that. So please don't underestimate the resolve. The issue is that to send troops into POK, capture it, etc. is okay. Gung-ho is fine. But we need to look at the larger issues that are going to be involved. Capturing POK may be just only one issue. How do you integrate it? How do you develop that area? All those issues need to be taken into account before we venture into something like that. So please keep those aspects in mind.
Yeah, just to add on, capturing POK is not I wouldn't say a great proposition. For the simple reason, the demography of the POK has been changed quite a bit. Right? It is no more case where the POK demography is akin to our demography this side. Right? So to take them on, what General Narasimhan said, I think it's a very important point that integrating there, we're going to take on 4 million people. Integrating them into your society is going to have its own problems, and things are not that rosy. And as far as CPEC is concerned, I think we need to take a larger view. And I think there are many more other options, asymmetric options to deal with CPEC than military options. And I think we have not yet played out our asymmetric options. In fact, we have not opened it also. I used to write a lot about CPEC, analyze a lot about CPEC a couple of years back. And my own view was CPEC is the third front of Pakistan. One Afghanistan front, the Indian front, and they've created a front within. And this is something, if we are pushed to the wall, I think we should handle that. And that front works to our advantage. Right? This is my views.
I think, yeah.
Maybe, can I just make one observation?
Please do, Professor Deepak, and thereafter I think we can wind up, Bala, because we are already eating 12.
Yeah, so
Yes.
I think, we have to look at the larger picture, as General Shankar said, because I see it as a part of China's pivot to Asia. CPAC is part of China's pivot to Asia and also part of their new strategy, so-called like aligning the small and stabilizing the big. They call it Lian Xiao Wen Da in Chinese. This is the new notion, so they are talking nowadays. So I think more than Pakistan, so I think we really need to focus here on China, because China is part of this in fact, it is the engineer of this program. So maybe, so we have to divert our capabilities, capacities to Chinese side and take it seriously rather than focusing on just, Pakistan and CPAC as just part of, Pakistan front. So that is my understanding. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. I think we have come to the end of what has been a very insightful discussion, and we have come to the end of the plenary session 1. I take this opportunity to thank Session Chair, Lieutenant General Narasimhan sir, all the presenters, Professor B.R. Deepak, Professor B.M. Chengappa, Lieutenant General Shankar sir, for a very, very insightful and bringing useful discussions to the table. And thank you very much for taking the time out to be with us. Thank you.